It's time now for the Retirement Playbook with Rick and Granger Hughes from the Hughes Retirement Group.
Welcome to the Retirement Playbook. I'm your host, James Howard, alongside Rick and Granger Hughes. Over the next half hour, I want you to pay attention. We're going to be discussing planning for a successful retirement. Why so many people in this country are missing the mark. I promise you, you're going to learn something. Take notes. Yeah, and they know how to simplify things too. All right, here's what's in store for the next 28 and a half minutes. It's about building a retirement plan, a written retirement plan. We'll discuss income, taxes, of course, and growth strategies, plus how market volatility can change your outlook. But first, let's meet these guys. Rick and Granger Hughes, the father-son duo. They've been a part of the Hughes Retirement Group for quite some time, of course, here in our community, a Chattanooga area firm that focuses on preparing people just like you for retirement. Rick and Granger are also popular radio show hosts. Guys, thank you very much for joining us today. I've known these guys for a long time, and you need to sit down with them. You really do. All right, let's talk about the keys to building a successful retirement plan. It looks different for each individual.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I think sometimes people will get into their mindset of thinking of the stock market, right? Mm-hmm. But there's so many other things outside of just, am I making or losing money in the stock market? So what type of Social Security plan do you have? Have you planned for it, or is it just, hey, I'm just going to turn it on when I feel like it? Mm-hmm. What type of healthcare decisions have you made? And we're not just talking about Medicare, as we've mentioned in previous shows. We're talking about long-term care as well. I mean, there's a good likelihood, and Dad will probably talk about it later, that you'll need some type of long-term care. It's depressing, I know, but it needs to be planned for. Yeah. Income. Do we have any other income besides Social Security? What type of risk is in that portfolio? And then, as we know, taxes. Yeah. We always talk about taxes.
We always talk about taxes.
Taxes are so important in retirement because once we write that check, as we've said, once we write it to Uncle Sam, it's gone. Mm-hmm. So those are things that I would say really need to start encompassing your plan. And then we can go a step further and say, okay, what type of estate plan are you going to have as well?
Yeah. Rick, let me ask you this. Why is income planning at the top of the list?
James, we're all used to getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
Now, what are you going to do one day when, boom, there's no check? Mm. Have you created a check of your own? If you haven't, it's going to be a struggle throughout retirement. Now, Granger said one of the key words there, plan. Mm. Do you have a retirement plan? Okay, very few people, and I know I've said this before, very few people build retirement plans. They spend more time planning for a vacation than they do for the next 20 to 30 years. So I want people to take it very seriously because I know we do. And I know if you're sitting down with us, we're going to take it very serious as if you're our only client. Yeah. Because it's a very important thing. So again, what are you going to do to replace that check? Social Security, yeah, you're probably planning on that. You may have a pension. We know they've gone to the wayside. Do you want to create yourself your own pension, okay? Because again, we believe you need a lot of fixed income so that, again, you're hedging against the market if we have a 2008.
So with that being said, Granger, when it comes to income taxes, you mentioned taxes, is it possible to receive a retirement income from our life savings without, having a income to pay income taxes?
It is possible. I mean, it does take planning, as he mentioned, and you and I have talked about this numerous times, the three buckets of money: taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. Doesn't matter who you're with, what financial firm, what bank you're with, your money's going to fall into one of those three categories. So how do we position them mathematically to be the most tax efficient, the most ideal situation that we can have? And that's where we go back to where we talked about Roth conversions, we talked about Roth contributions, things of that nature. But we've talked about also maximizing our 401k bucket. So we're not against tax deferral. We just want to do it with the right mathematical amount. But I do think that when we're looking at income planning, people need to start looking and saying, as we look at this holistic picture, am I getting the most bang for my buck? So we look from a taxation standpoint. Am I getting the most bang for my buck? If I've not properly planned, when I get to retirement age and I have to take what's called an RMD, required minimum distribution, it's required. The government doesn't give you a choice. So any money in your 401k that you've never taken out now has to come out a portion so they can tax it. But the thing that people want to start being aware of, and this is where this all starts coming together, They've actually bumped the RMD age back to age 75 for most people. But think about what they've also done. They've eliminated the stretch IRA. So now we're talking legacy, we're talking estate planning, we're talking taxes for your kids now. So if you haven't properly planned to shift that money to them over time. Now, some people say, I don't care if my kids pay taxes. But let's say you're in a 32% tax bracket and you inherit $1 million. You have 10 years to deplete that account. So how much tax are they going to pay relative to what maybe their parents would have paid? So that's where we say the tax planning goes a little bit further than just today. It also goes for your children as well.
And the IRS is smart. Okay, I know we think of the IRS as not being smart.
Yeah.
There's $84 trillion that seniors control, and the IRS knows that. And we believe that's why they had a lot to do with passing that Secure Act. They're wanting to get that money now, not later down the road.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you look at Roth, like people will say, well, why would the government let you do a Roth? Well, they're still getting tax revenue today. So if you're looking at paying at today's rates, that still could be advantageous.
I was going to ask you, is there any guaranteed money?
Yeah. Well, I always try to stay clear of saying the word guarantee because I'm not the federal government. But there are things that are more secure, I would say, and there are things that, once again, I like to kind of do a point of reference, and I would say that historical precedence has been set that once they do legislatively make changes, historically, most of those people that were already in those positions would be grandfathered in.
Because I was going to mention annuities.
Yeah.
We've talked about annuities on the show before.
Yeah.
Some folks have been happy with their annuities. Some folks, it didn't work for them, right?
Again, James, we always say not every annuity is created equal.
Okay.
You need to make sure you're doing your research, that if you're going to do an annuity, how strong, what kind of rating does that company have? Are you looking for growth in this annuity? You hear people say out there, I've heard annuities have high fees. There's annuities that have no fees, okay? So if you're looking for growth and accumulation, you can get into a fixed indexed annuity with no fees, or are you looking for that lifetime income or pension? So it's a matter of, again, educating yourself and seeing what's out there. We're not saying an annuity is for everyone, but it can fill a place if somebody's needing, that fixed income.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought it up because, we talk about, once again, bang for your buck. What if you could put your money somewhere and get an income stream? I won't say guaranteed. They'll say guaranteed. But let's say you get a guaranteed income stream. Oh, and by the way, if something happened to you where you couldn't feed yourself or bathe yourself, they'll double that money for you if you can't perform what they call 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. And then if, let's say, God forbid, not to be morbid here, but you passed away, then whatever is left in that bucket of money can go to your beneficiary. So that's kind of getting more bang for your buck out of that dollar instead of just putting it in the stock market hoping for the best. Because the thing that I think is troublesome for folks is if you have a bucket of money, $500,000, $1 million, and that's all in the stock market, you are living and dying, living and breathing with whatever's happening in those markets. And at the end of the day, there's going to be volatility. And the thing I always try to impress upon people is even though historically the markets may end positively at the end of the year, during that year it's not 100% green every single day. And as a retiree, someone who's taking distributions, you could still be taking money while the markets are down.
All right. So, once upon a time, pensions were standard, and you collected Social Security, and a few mutual funds and bonds carried you through retirement. How have the rules changed?
It's the old reality. These companies now don't want to get caught up with guaranteeing you money for the rest of your life in those pensions. So they did away with the pensions. You may still have people working at TVA or M&M Mars that have pensions. They're under the old contracts. The new people they hire on, they're going to give them an opportunity for a 401k. Now, that doesn't mean a 401k is worse or better, but when we're back to that pension, when you're getting guaranteed income, that gives you a little bit of security.
Yeah.
But I mean, to kind of piggyback off that and go a little bit different direction, when you have a pension, one of the things you want to look at are what are those payout methods. But do you have a lump sum option? Because we talked about taxes. Let's say you have a lump sum option. Once you collect that pension, you're kind of landlocked. That money's coming to you. If you're getting $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, that money's coming to you. So when we get to the Social Security age, right now, James, if you are a married couple making over $32,000 a year, 50% of your Social Security can become taxable. If you're over $44,000 a year, 85% can become taxable. And those numbers have not changed since the 90s. So you could be getting a pension thinking, okay, this is good, but now you're incurring additional tax that you weren't anticipating. Whereas if you have a lump sum pension option, if you roll that over in, let's say, a traditional IRA, you now control that asset. So if you wanted to do Roth conversions, you could do that. If you wanted to do Roth conversions and create your own pension tax-free, you can do that. If you wanted to keep it where it was at and pay deferral, you can do that, but you control the asset. So when we're teaching people and we're educating people, the biggest thing we go back to is religiously, I'm a Christian, all right? But when it comes to financial advising, I'm agnostic. So we don't want to have one method, one approach of this is the only way to accomplish your retirement goal. There's several different ways. It's not the same for everybody. For some, it may be an annuity. For some, it may be market-based, bond-based, whatever it may be. But we want to make sure that we find the best system or the most ideal system for you.
I told you, what you're learning in 28 and a half minutes is amazing. We're just now into the show. We've got more to come. Give us that website. Give us a phone number how we can connect with you and your team. HughesRetirementGroup.com or call us at 423-641-099. And I believe that is on your screen. All right, let's talk about long-term care. What can people do to prepare for long-term care without taking a huge insurance policy out? There's several options. Most people do not want to think of long-term care. It's depressing to think about. But what if I told you that people that are turning 65, there's a 70% chance you'll need some type of long-term care assistance. That may be from home, but that's pretty high odds, okay? So when you think of retirement planning, if you have not planned for long-term care, everything's going to be great. Me and my wife, we're going to travel the country, we're going to do all this, and all of a sudden life throws me a curveball and I need long-term care. It's not cheap. In Hamilton County here, for a private room, depending on the facility you're going to, is about $100,000 a year, okay? So that can eat into your retirement portfolio. So let's talk about strategies. You could obviously, as you just said, spend a lot of money and get a long-term care insurance policy. We can help people with that. But I'm going to tell you something, James. We've never, ever, and we've been in business since 2005, no one has ever walked into our office in their 40s or 50s and said, I need to talk to you about long-term care. Yeah. It's usually when they're getting ready to go on Medicare and they'll say, oh, by the way, I'm here, can I talk to you about long-term care? And maybe their parents been in a facility and that sort of thing. Number one, long-term care, you have to go through underwriting, you have to pass, they're looking at morbidity. You know, what's the chances you're gonna have bad knees, hips, that sort of thing. And you pay in all these dollars, and in most cases, it's use it, lose it. Now, there's some policies out there that are real old, that were lifetime policies. They've gone by the wayside. Usually, you're going to get a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan. The national statistics say, on average, it's about 3.5 years in a facility, okay? And so that one is more of a use it, lose it, and you don't want to use it. The other option is you can do a life insurance retirement plan. So if you think about this, most of the time you've heard people say, I'm going to go into retirement, I don't need life insurance anymore. My mortgage is paid off, kids are out of college, that sort of thing. You're not buying the life insurance for that cause. You're buying it for long-term care, whereas if you cannot perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, then it will allow you to be able to get 2% of that death benefit. So if that death benefit was $500,000, you're able to get $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year. Now, you do have underwriting on that as well. That's based on mortality, okay? And so you do have the cost of insurance. The last strategy, Granger was kind of speaking about it earlier, it's where, you know, you can roll money from a 401k, for example, from bucket A to bucket B. It hasn't cost you anything to roll that. And you're getting this pension, but if for some reason a doctor says you cannot perform 2 of the 6 ADLs, they'll double your money for up to 5 years. Now, not every company is going to do that. Like I said, not all are created equal. But I would tell folks, when you're planning for retirement, make sure you're planning for long-term care, because if not, it can really throw you a curveball down the road. Granger, when it comes to, not every plan is for everyone, like your dad just said.
Yeah.
When it comes to a financial advisor and folks going, I need to see you guys, What does that look like when finding the right financial advisor for that individual?
The key word there is advise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we sit down with folks, we want it to be personable. We want it to be intimate. We're not, I've said to you, and I think I said this to you kind of off air, but I've been sold a car before. I don't like it. I don't like the feeling of it. I don't like the pressure of it. And you shouldn't feel pressured when you're making lifetime decisions like this. And so that's where we go and we try to, we look at annuities. How many companies are out there? Well, we try to represent a lot of different options, from an investment landscape standpoint, whether it's Fidelity, Schwab, whoever it's through. We try to offer those to our clients. Now, at the end of the day, it's products, it's investment options, all of that is going to be included in it. But we want to try to educate you conceptually so you can make the best decision for you without us trying to sell you a product. Because at the end of the day, it's about you, it's not about us. We want to work with you, we want to help you, but we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel knowledgeable in your retirement.
That's why you need to choose these guys, okay, and their team for sure. Give us a website, give us that phone number one more time.
So HughesRetirementGroup.com. Telephone number is 423-641-0999.
Do you hear the clock? The clock is ticking towards your retirement. Granger, how much money do we need to retire? I'm sure you get asked that every day.
Get asked that. I have no idea. How much do you want to spend? So, that is the key at the end of the day. And I think, it's such a crucial step when we meet with somebody. If we're going to test your portfolio and look at long-term care and taxes, all that stuff's fantastic. But if we don't have an idea of how much we anticipate spending each year, it's very difficult to assemble that portfolio. So from a magic number standpoint, when you see this stuff on the news that now you need $1 million to retire or $2 million to retire. Yes and no. It depends on what type of lifestyle you're going to have. We have wide ranges of folks. We have folks that want to spend $200,000 a year. We have folks that want to spend $15,000 a year. So when you're looking at your individual portfolio, as we've said so many times, it's not a cookie cutter situation. Yeah. What are you going to spend in retirement? What type of investments do you have?
Granger, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something. I think for people out there getting ready to approach retirement, one of the biggest things you can do is develop a budget as if you're retired. The ideal goal is to have your mortgage paid off. Okay. Not everybody is going to, and maybe your vehicle's paid off. Those are your two big ticket items. And then sit down and develop a budget. And I always say test drive that budget for a year or two.
Before you retire?
Before, because I'm going to tell you, 90% of the people that walk into our office will say, how much net income do you need in retirement? They have no clue. And Granger just said it right there. It's not about how much you have. How much do you want to spend? And that budget will put you on the right track.
That's free. That's free. All right, we got to talk about taxes. Where do taxes fall into place?
Well, we're going to pay them, right?
Yeah.
we don't want to get in trouble. Obviously, you want to try to put yourself in a good place where hopefully you're not paying as many taxes. And we're in that tax code right now, again, where it's lower. You may want to get in a position where we've said earlier about doing Roth conversions. But taxes is something that we all have to face. But having the right tax plan, tax strategy can help you keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket instead of giving it to Uncle Sam. Because Granger said, once you write that check,
it's gone. It's not coming back.
And when you're talking about spending, it matters where you're taking that money from. So if you're sitting there saying, hey, I need an extra $5,000 this year, well, where do you take it from? And without knowing what other types of income that you've already, accumulated that year, it could be a haphazard way. So that's why we always try to impress upon people, if you've been working, you've gotten a W-2, pretty simple on a tax form, right? Yeah. But now you get to retirement, you've got Social Security, you got an IRA distribution, you got maybe some capital gains, long-term, short-term, maybe qualified dividend. You get all these different types of money, maybe even have some pension or business income. Well, your tax bill can increase quite significantly where you thought, hey, I'm retired, I should be paying lower taxes now. It could actually be increasing in retirement.
Rick, a big loss before retirement could be obviously devastating. How do you know if you're doing enough to keep that,
I'm going to go back to
from that happening.
Yeah, if you've developed a plan Now let's go back to 2008, right? Imagine all the folks that were planning on retiring in 2008 and the housing market crisis came along and they lost again 40 to 50% of their portfolio. A lot of those folks did not get to retire. They had to continue working.
Right.
Now, we believe 3 to 5 years before retirement, you need to begin to develop a plan, okay? That doesn't mean that's not going to happen again.
Right.
But remember what I said earlier. We, on average in America, we have a bear market every 7 years on average. Okay, so when Granger and I are working with people, we're calculating that in. We're trying to look for the rainy days. Okay, because it's going to happen. It's not always going to be as in the stock market. It's not always going to be green. Okay, and if we've done the right planning, then that's going to give us a much better chance of having a successful retirement.
And are there ways that we could partake of some gains if the markets are in the green, but we can still hedge against that downside risk? And there are, and you can do that you can do that with insurance products. You can do it in the market, and there's things that we do to kind of hedge against that. And then from a standpoint of our core portfolios, as we've said so many times, we try to use a non-emotional, mathematical, methodical approach. We actually have a book that we recommend to people read, and we've got some copies of it called Cookies and Retirement, and it kind of relates the two together. Okay, baking cookies. Do I have the right ingredients? Have I put it in for long enough? When do I take it out? Those are crucial steps. But if you replace sugar with vinegar, it's going to taste a little different, right? If you replace sugar with salt, they're going to taste a little. So you want to make sure you have the right ingredients. And I think when you're looking at portfolio, people get so caught up in just hearing what the S&P or the Dow are doing. They're not looking at their individual ingredients that they have. And that's where we go through and we try to test that portfolio, because when we're looking at that risk reward, we're saying we don't want a bumpy ride in retirement. All right, it doesn't mean we can't take some risks, but take them in the right spots. As we mentioned before, if we've got the right income plan in place, well, maybe we don't have to worry as much about the drastic downturns in the market, because they're going to inevitably come. But can we not, instead of losing 30%, maybe we lose 10%? How do we position our portfolios to accomplish those goals? And that's one of the things that we try to get people to focus on, because it's not about hitting grand slams anymore. It's about providing for your retirement from a long-term standpoint.
And Granger, you and I both, we just finished up a class, Alternatives to CDs. Okay, because a lot of people go to CDs because that's the guarantee, right? Yeah. FDIC insured, I put $100,000 in, I get 4% or whatever the number is. So so there are strategies out there, and Granger discussed quite a few of those in our previous class, and it's something to look at.
All right, give us a website, give us your phone number. I know it's been on your screen, but pay attention.
HughesRetirementGroup.com. Scan the QR code or call us at 423-641-0999.
Rick, you mentioned it just a few seconds ago, going back to 2008 for a moment, from a market standpoint, to say this was a trying time for folks is definitely an understatement, for sure.
So, one of the things that we try to talk to people about is the difference in accumulation and distribution, right? So when we're working, we're 20, 30, 40, we're loading up our 401ks, our retirement plans. 2008's not fun at all, but in most cases, you're not having to dip into that to survive. Yeah. And so we use this thing, a sequence of returns kind of analysis, and we basically take two portfolios and we run their identical returns, but they just happen at different times. And so at the end of the term, at the end of the 20-year period or whatever it is, they have the identical amount of money, okay? Because they didn't take any distributions. But once you plug distributions in, now all of a sudden, there's a big difference between the two. One might have $40,000, the other one might have $400,000. And so that's why we say, when we're looking at actually distributing income versus just accumulating it, accumulation, we get those compound growth benefits because we don't touch it. Yeah. Distribution, we get compound losses. So I always try to illustrate to people in class is it's not that anything that portfolio A did better than portfolio B other than the sequence of which those returns happened. So in 2008, people weren't anticipating that. Yeah. It was unfortunate that, and it changed their retirement. So what are we doing today to not continue down that same path to kind of hedge against that and protect a portion of our money?
And I guess we've learned a lot too.
We have, and if you look at 2020 when we had COVID and the markets went down, it was short-lived though. It wasn't like the housing crisis in 2008. Now, nobody knew exactly, how it was going to play out at that time. But again, it's having that plan, and if you've got a plan, you're in a much better place.
Yeah. What if somebody walked into your office and they say, all right, this is where I want to invest? What does that look like?
Well, we look at it like a marriage, okay? There's some good marriages and there's some bad marriages, right? It's got to be a two-way street. We got to feel like we can help you, and you got to feel like you can trust us, and we're building a relationship.
Sure.
Okay, it's not we're sitting there and managing money. Okay, it's the whole component that we talked about, from Medicare to whatever strategy that we're looking to do. So that's where we start first. So when somebody comes in, we're going to kind of fill that situation out. Then we're going to find out what their goals and objectives are. And we're going to kind of take it step by step. And we're not just going to rush in and let us have your statements and let's do this, you know. So it's a process.
Yeah. What does that process look like, Granger?
Well, I mean, the first process, as he mentioned, when we kind of get to that point where we're looking at, okay, where are we at right now? As I mentioned kind of the ingredients earlier, what type of ingredients do you have in your portfolio right now? How much of each ingredient do you have? So as we mentioned earlier, and I keep using this cookie analogy, the Cookies and Retirement is the book. Give us a call. I mean, we can get you a copy of it. But that's the thing. If you come in and let's say you have NVIDIA, Apple, Tesla, you have those three stocks. Okay, well, that doesn't mean much to me unless you tell me how much of each one of those stocks you own. If that comprises 80% of your portfolio, I'm going to look at it completely different than I would if it was 3%, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to find out, what do you own? How much of it do you own? We're going to find out, what is your risk tolerance? And does it coincide with how you're currently allocated? And then we're going to kind of address the other things of the income planning, the Social Security, the taxes, the health care. So we're going to kind of look at that holistic picture. And I always say this, and I've used this example before, but my whole philosophy in life is it's nice to know you can. I like to have the option. Like when I'm flying, right? I like to know, okay, James is going to land this plane if I have a panic attack, right? So I like to know I can get off the plane if I need to. And I've said the same thing. You know what Land Cruisers are, right? Toyota Land Cruiser, they're the mall car these days, right? So they're these $100,000 mall cars that could go off on a safari. And so I always say this, most people are just going to go to the mall. But if they get in that snowstorm or they get off road, it's nice to know they're still safe. So when we're planning a retirement, we like to plan it so that if those roadblocks do come, we've got a plan. It's nice to know we've got a plan for it.
Yeah. And it's all about planning. And then I love how you guys can sit down and take care of that for us. There's a lot that I think you've gotten off our shoulders just in the last 28 and a half minutes. We've got about less than 60 seconds. And I want to mention this. You coached college ball for 25 years.
Yes.
I love how just you working with teams, you working with individuals, it makes sense that you put together game plans because this is what you've done your whole life.
That's why we trademarked the Retirement Playbook.
Yeah.
25 years of coaching. During coaching, you had preparation for your next opponent. That's what we're doing in retirement, preparation. During the game, you're making adjustments. Okay? During retirement, you're making adjustments. Everything's not going to be green every day. So when you talk about having a coach on your side, I've got the background for it. I did it for 25 years, and I'll do the same thing in retirement. In my community now, they still call me Coach. Coach, do you miss coaching? I said, no, because I still am.
We appreciate you both.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Granger, thank you. Coach, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, give us that website and telephone number one more time.
HughesRetirementGroup.com, or call us at 423-641-0999.
Thanks for watching.